Welcome to This Explainer. Okay, let's just dive right into it. When you think about becoming wealthy, what's literally the very first thing that pops into your head? If you're like almost everyone else out there, the answer is pretty simple. You just need to make more money. I mean, we're constantly told that the path to financial freedom is completely paved with higher salaries, asking for that big promotion, or, starting some relentless side hustle selling custom candles on the internet. But what if I told you that focusing solely on your income is actually a massive misconception? Seriously, what if there's a single completely hidden financial mistake, like an invisible wealth killer, that's quietly keeping millions of Americans poor and forcing them to work decades longer than they actually need to? Well, today we're going to break down exactly what this hidden trap is, and more importantly, show you how to avoid it.
$100,000. I really want to anchor us to this shocking figure right out of the gate, because listen, this isn't just some random statistic we pulled out of thin air. This is the exact cost of the mistake that's quietly keeping millions of Americans living paycheck to paycheck. It's the staggering price tag of an invisible financial leak that ordinary people unknowingly suffer from over the course of their lifetimes. It is happening every single day right under our noses. And honestly, the absolute worst part about this whole thing, most people don't even realize it's happening to them. They just go about their daily routines completely unaware that this massive chunk of wealth is quietly slipping right through their fingers.
So there are basically two totally different ways of thinking about your money, focusing on income and focusing on retention. When people talk about improving their financial situation, they almost always pour all their energy into the income side of the equation. Getting a raise, landing a better paying job. But retention, that is where the wealthy mindset actually lives. Because wealth isn't just determined by what comes in, it's ultimately determined by what stays. Think about it like this. You could have this hypothetical high earner pulling in $200,000 a year. Sounds great, right? But if they spend every single penny upgrading their lifestyle, their net worth is exactly zero. Now contrast that with someone earning a modest $60,000 a year, but they consistently retain 20% of their income. Over time, that modest earner is the one quietly building an absolute financial fortress. You can have a fantastic income, but if your retention is terrible, you're literally losing the game without even realizing you're playing it.
Okay, so what exactly is draining our retention? It's what we call the $15 daily drain. We're talking about those highly relatable, totally silent wealth killers. Those everyday conveniences that we'd barely even remember buying. A premium morning coffee. Ordering food delivery because you didn't want to spend 10 minutes cooking. Those random impulse purchases strategically placed right there when you're checking out at the store. And oh man, let's not forget those sneaky subscription services that just auto-renew every single month. In fact, did you know the average consumer spends over $200 a month just on subscription services they've completely forgotten about or don't even use anymore? It's wild. $15 a day really doesn't sound like much at all, does it? It feels harmless. It just feels like the basic cost of getting through a modern Tuesday.
But let's actually walk through this stark mathematical reality together. If you're spending just $15 a day on those invisible conveniences over the course of one single year, that adds up to more than $5,000. Just let that sink in. $5,000. Now stretch that exact same habit over 20 years, you are looking at a loss of more than $100,000. These tiny, small decisions repeated thousands of times become surprisingly, devastatingly expensive. And remember, that $100,000, that's just the raw physical cash leaving your wallet. That is before we even consider what you're losing in potential investment growth if you would actually put that money to work. We're going to talk about compounding interest in just a second, but man, just the raw loss alone is absolutely staggering.
Seeing those numbers laid out so clearly like that naturally brings up a pretty major question. If the math is so stark and the loss is so massive, why do we willingly choose this short-term pleasure? I mean, we know better, right? We see the math, we know we should be saving, so why on earth do we keep draining our own wealth day in and day out?
Well, the real problem isn't the math. The math is super straightforward. The real problem is human behavior and how our brains are actually wired. From an evolutionary standpoint, our brains are hardwired for immediate survival. Thousands of years ago, if you found calories, you consumed them right then and there. Our ancestors definitely weren't wired to plan for a retirement that's 30 years away. So today, our brains absolutely crave immediate rewards. When you buy something today, that coffee, that food delivery, it feels intensely real. It's tangible. You get this little hit of dopamine and experience the pleasure right now. But long-term wealth, that feels incredibly distant. It's just abstract. And because our biology so heavily favors that immediate gratification, we consistently choose short-term pleasure over long-term wealth, completely blind to the true, massive cost of those choices.
To break out of this trap, we have to adopt a totally different perspective. Wealthy people understand something that most of us just ignore. Money saved today isn't just money money saved. It is future income. It represents future opportunities. It represents future freedom. Most wealthy people don't just buy their financial independence with one giant lucky decision. No way. They buy their freedom through thousands of small, disciplined choices. Every single time they choose retention over a fleeting, immediate reward, they are literally buying back their future time. They are buying the option to retire early, to start a business, or simply to wake up on a random Tuesday without feeling that sense of financial panic. Let's map out exactly how that future freedom is actually built. Imagine taking that $15 a day, just a few bucks here and there, nothing dramatic at all, and investing it into something like an S&P 500 index fund. If we look at the historical average returns of the stock market, the journey is honestly fascinating. In year one, the progress feels almost invisible. You might look at your accounts and think, okay, absolutely nothing is happening here. But as you keep going, year after year, the compounding begins working. By year 10, you notice the growth really starts accelerating. Your money is literally making its own money. And by year 30, it snowballs into massive, unstoppable wealth. People completely underestimate how powerful consistency can become when you stretch it out over decades. That $15 a day doesn't just add up, it multiplies. So how do we actually execute this in our own lives? It's what we can call the unglamorous path to wealth. And it really just comes down to 3 remarkably simple steps. Start early, invest consistently, and let compounding work. Seriously, you do not need to be some exceptionally brilliant financial wizard to do this. You don't need to be born lucky, and you definitely do not need a hot stock tip from your neighbor. You just need to follow this straightforward process. It's all about starting as soon as you possibly can, staying consistent with those few dollars here and there, and then just having the patience to sit on your hands and let the compounding math do all the heavy lifting for you.
And when you do that consistently, it brings us to this staggering number, $1 million. Here is where the whole narrative comes full circle and becomes incredibly empowering. By redirecting just a few $100s a month, by actively avoiding that $15 daily drain and investing it consistently instead, you can potentially end up with hundreds of thousands or even over $1 million by the time you retire. Just think about that for a second. By changing your daily habits, you turn a $100,000 mistake into $1 million difference over the decades. It completely shifts the entire trajectory of your life.
Which leads us directly to the core takeaway of our explainer today. Wealth isn't built in a single moment. It's built through thousands of choices. The biggest obstacle to building long-term wealth isn't always having a low income. Often, the real culprit is those small financial habits that we repeat every single day on pure autopilot. Those thousands of tiny choices determine whether your money works for you and builds your future, or if it simply disappears into thin air before you even notice it's gone.
I really hope this breakdown has helped you see your daily financial habits in a completely new light. The power truly is in your hands, and it's hidden right there within the small choices you make every single day. So I want to leave you with this final, provocative question. Look at your own life right now. What's one small expense you've cut that made a big difference? Think about it. Critically reflect on your spending and start looking for those invisible drains. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and we will see you next time.